What's up, guys? How we doing? Little Tuesday night. Appreciate everybody hanging out on a, not as much going on these days. We're probably going to say that for a number of weeks, but there is the combine coming up, so we got that to look forward to. Lots of speculation. Howie and Nick spoke at the combine. Curious to get that talk. Y'all's thoughts as well. But shout out to everybody in the chat. If you haven't already, hit the like button. Really appreciate it. And let me know where you're listening from. I will give as many shout outs as I can. Got a little craziness going on in the other room, but what's up? How's everybody doing? Shout out to Andrew Nathan. Yes, I'll get the 10 push-ups in. Yeah, I appreciate that. I was running late as usual. That's the typical. I think at this point it doesn't matter what time I schedule it. It's just going to be a little bit later. But Laura Powell, what's up? Says if they franchise Sneed, what are they going to do with Chris Jones? That's a good question. So when I made this title and this thumbnail, it was better news maybe with the Chiefs and L'Jarius Sneed than whenever, actually we're going live here. So in case anyone's not aware, they haven't been following, I'll throw this up there just to get some people caught up. So it's nothing's official on any of this, but for the record, we had the report that comes out, of multiple Eagles texting L'Jarius Sneed, recruiting him to come to Philly. That per Tony Pauline of Sportskeeda. Obviously, Boston Scott, Milton Williams, those are the names there. Hey, that's great, right? I mean, obviously with Sneed in his Instagram post, he posted the Eagle. Devontae Smith liked it. I heard from a lot of you that, said, hey, he does this all the time. I know, just let me dream, let me have fun, let me enjoy it. But you're right. Like, he does post those. If you go back and look, he posts Eagles emojis and does stuff on his account. So, not as big of a deal. But then all of a sudden, hey, you got some Eagles players that are recruiting him, potentially to Philly. And even Milton Williams, you see, he's got the eye emojis. So it's not nothing. He's not refuting that claim. He's been like, all right, hey, let's get Sneed over here. I'd love to see it. I'd love to have Sneed. We've talked about it for, 3, 4 episodes, a couple lives at this point. Love his physicality. I'm okay with his pass interference or the penalties that he has. I know he leads the NFL. Something you'd have to deal with, but I think the good outweighs the bad in that scenario, and I'm all right with some physicality and intensity on this defense. But yeah, that was the positive. Unfortunately, the story kind of continues because then Jeremy Fowler kind of hiked a leg on it a little bit, saying Chiefs have informed Sneed they're prepared to use the franchise tag, but they're open to a trade if a no long-term deal is reached. So they're going to let Sneed talk to teams and, kind of similar-ish of a Haason Reddick situation. Not that we're tagging Haason because he's already got the year left. We can get into Haason too. But yeah, it's like, okay, what happens with Sneed there at that point? Curious to get y'all's thoughts. There is the comment, like Laura was saying, what do you do with Chris Jones? I don't know that you go in the scenario of another franchise tag situation, but sure, you got to deal with one of them, right? If you're going to use the tag, Veach, the GM from Kansas City, did say that they'll use the franchise tag to keep their players to their benefit. So if you pick between those, I love Sneed, but if I'm the Chiefs, there's no way that I'm letting Chris Jones walk, whatever that takes, whatever that means. If it is, in fact, the franchise tag. Now, that's a crazy high number for the tag, but, I guess, short-term, 1-year type of deal, you do that rather than paying. I don't know, but, yeah, there's the possibility. However, I don't love that in terms of, okay, they're going to try to get a long-term deal done, so probably unlikely, or definitely unlikely if that happens, but if it doesn't, they're going to use the tag to then try and trade L'Jarius Sneed. So question, do you trade for Sneed? Are you open to getting rid of assets to bring Sneed to Philly? There's other options too. There's lots of options. We can talk through all those. Let's get to the super chat here though, real quick. Let's see. Flipping the Bird, what's up? Appreciate the 5, man. Says, sup, Josh? Great show, my guy. Pay Reddick, Smitty, Agent Zero, and Dickerson. Thoughts? I'm with you. Pay them all. To me, they're worth it. Without a doubt. Yeah, appreciate the 5 for sure, man. It's in my mind, yeah, totally makes sense. I mean, the easy ones are Devontae, right? Devontae and Landon Dickerson, you got to get those extensions done. They don't necessarily help you as much like this season with the cap numbers, but they help long term. Like those are guys that are going to be here. Those are guys you want to be a part of your organization. So for sure, those two, I don't think there's any arguments. I mean, if anybody is against those for some reason, let me know in the chat. But like those seem automatic. Then it's a question of, do you pay Haason? Do you pay Agent Zero? I kind of think you do. I mean, for sure on Reddick. DeAndre Swift, like I've gone back and forth on. I can see a world where it doesn't make sense. There's options in the draft. You could draft a running back. Do I think that they're going to be of the quality, at least where you should draft someone? I don't want to spend a really high draft pick on a running back. You're probably going to take a little bit of a hit in terms of production. You won't have the same type of caliber with a DeAndre Swift, but you could draft a running back. I'm just curious to see where the cap lands and the money that we can spend. Will another team go out and splurge on DeAndre Swift? That's my other fear. If he gets kind of somewhat outpriced, you don't have as much control over that situation. So for me, that's the only part that I don't know. It'll kind of be in Howie's hands, but in a way not, because I could see a world where he goes, that's too pricey. I'm not paying that. Not paying that for Swift, even if I can match it. I mean, heck, he let TJ Edwards walk for $6.5 million. So we can get into that too. We got to talk about linebackers, but there's better options in a lot of number of areas. Howie admitted to in his press conference, hey, you know what? We missed on a couple. I appreciate it. I appreciate him admitting it. Can he make up for it? Can he correct it and right the wrong? Maybe. But yeah, as far as the pay Haason Reddick, like I'm totally on board with that. You with the way, and we've talked about it too. I mean, the cap numbers with the way that those are at. Reddick's camp apparently is holding firm to the $25 million. And the report is, I don't know, I've only seen one report, but shout out to Jake Rabati in the Liberty Line. If this is legit, I mean, the report is that Howie and the Birds are wanting more of a 22 number, get up to $22 million per year. They are okay, I guess, with a longer term deal. I don't know numbers of years. That just speculation wise makes me think like, what, a 3-year deal? I don't know that you go longer than that with Haason. But yeah, 3 years, 22-ish million a year is maybe where Howie is, and Reddick wants 25. But again, you got him under control versus, these guys that are hitting the market already, and you're just going to be in a bidding war. So the fact the cap went up, $25 million is not what it was a couple days ago, like I've said a couple times. So I'm with you. Totally on board. Reddick, Smitty, Dickerson, Agent Zero, I've kind of gone back and forth. But don't hate it. Appreciate the 5, though. All right, let me get to some of these chats. I know I was going on for a little bit, but got to give the shout-outs too whenever I can. So real quick, run through some of these. Let's see, Ernie from Pittsburgh, man, what's going on? Marty with a Kelce emoji. I love that. NZ Philly fan, finally catching one of these live. Shout-out from NZ, New Zealand. There you go. Robert Foley, what's up, Josh? Rob from the Pro Shop. Heck yeah. What's up? Let's see. Well, and I'll get to some of the questions too. I'm just running through some of the shout outs too real quick. But Tracy Ann, let's run it. Robert from South Philly. John Jones wants them to get Sneed. I mean, I'm with you. If you can get him for the right number. Andre, what's up? Says, remember me, Josh. Yeah. How's it going? Donovan, what's up? He says, let's see. I don't think we'll get Sneed, but I would love to focus on linebacker and turn to the draft for DB help. I think Ringo will be a star. Yeah, I'm okay with that. We can get into that as well. But I'm with you in terms of, hey, there's DB help that you can get in the draft. Maybe you do go after a linebacker. Do you spend significant money? Who would that potentially be? But there's options for sure. Jesse watching from Fort Worth. John Jones, his first time on here, man. Appreciate you hanging out. Marty, how about the talks about drafting the linebacker from Clemson? Yeah, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I know that's happened quite a bit, but we talk about Trotter Jr., yeah. He's got the formal interview at the Combine, and I would imagine he'll have some other interviews as well, but yep, like David said. Saw today, Andy Reid said they want Jones and Sneed for sure. I mean, you don't get rid of them or let them walk unless there's just absolutely no way that you can hang on to them. John says, I want the Birds to draft a bruiser back. Which bruiser back? Do you have a name in particular or just a bruiser in general? Andrew says Swift for 3 years, $16 million, should be worth 4.5 to 6 a year. That feels about right. Maybe someone splashes a little bit more. What, Miles Sanders, was he 6.5 also? I think he was, if my memory serves. I'm not looking that up instantly, but you know, I could see that number, especially the running back market the way it is. I could also see, though, it being more close to 7 with his production and his age. But, you know, hey, if we could get it for that number, it's not too bad. Devontae, what's up? I am feeling good. I am also, I guess, while you're asking, this made me think of it, but there's not going to be a Friday night hangout. So just heads up for anybody who's planning on hanging out, or, you know, we usually do that on Friday nights. I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be on a cruise leaving late tomorrow. So brother's got a bachelor trip party thing on a cruise, taking Royal Caribbean. So we're gonna have a blast. We're gonna have some fun, but I'll be off for a couple days. So, you know, again, in case anybody's wondering, that's where we will be. But I'm doing well. Let's see. What's your opinion on Latu, defensive end from UCLA, going in the first round? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate it. You know, I'm curious to see what they're going to do with 22, and we've talked about it a couple different times on shows and videos and everything else. I would really dislike it if they go with an offensive player, period, let alone an offensive tackle. But it seems like in a couple different mock drafts that it's going that route, and it wouldn't totally shock me knowing Howie and what he does. You know, very early, obviously, but Tyler Guyton has gotten the request for a top 30 visit, the first official one after the Combine that will take place. But Lane Johnson loves him, kind of sees him as his potential replacement. It was interesting that he said that, too, given the fact that they drafted Tyler Steen. I don't think Steen's, like, out of the plans. You know, I think that he's still a viable option. Maybe Lane doesn't think so, or maybe, hey, you're just praising another guy. You know, you could read into it all you want to, or read into it very little. Either way, there's still a possibility, I think, that you see a Tyler Guyton or another offensive lineman, if they slip or fall to 22, that Howie goes and gets him. At the same time, I could see him trading up. But I don't know. The more that I go into this, it's totally going to depend on free agency too. So I guess I should maybe answer every question with a disclaimer until we get through free agency. That's probably where we're all at, honestly. And if you're doing mock drafts, that's why I've done a few, but it's just very unrealistic expectations because we don't know what free agency is going to look like. And that'll totally change my mock drafts. Mock drafts pre-free agency versus post-free agency are so drastically different. So, we're going to start doing these on the lives. I've mentioned that before. We'll do it on the Friday night hangouts. But we got to get past free agency because that's going to change how everyone views who we should draft, what we should go after. But I don't mind Latu. You know, his ability, anytime you can add in the trenches, I think that's still a realistic option too. If you know, to the same sentiment of an offensive tackle, you could go with any defensive lineman, right? I mean, there's heck, you could go with a defensive tackle even. Who was the let's see, I was trying to think. There was a mock draft that I just saw recently. And who did they have mocked to the Eagles? I think it was Byron Murphy? Whose mock draft was that? Yeah, it was Pro Football Network. Pro Football Network, they did a recent mock draft, and they had Byron Murphy, who was mocked to the Eagles. And that one's, defensive tackle. Like, I don't mind, pass rush. If you're going to go that route, you're going to add to it. It's tried and true. It's a proven method. It's something that we always know is what you can expect of Howie. But I've seen some comments about, like, hey, would they really go with a defensive tackle, especially if you look in the past drafts? I mean, that'd be like 3 in a row to go defensive tackle. But, I mean, we've done it even with receiver, honestly. Now, granted, you're kind of counting one of those as like a trade, but still, like, you're investing resources in the same position over multiple drafts. And I'll pull up but I don't think this is impossible. So, yeah, to your point, I think there's a lot of options out there with the pass rush, and any way you can get some more depth on that, I'm all right with it. Andre, yes, I appreciate it. That means a lot. You're the best YouTuber. That's not true. Not even close. There's a lot of other YouTubers out there, but I appreciate the support. 007, what's up? DeGene is not extrice, I think is how I say that. DeGene is not testing at the combine. That's true. But he is a crazy athlete. Testing helps a lot of players. I think we all realize that. You go to the combine, you can help your draft status, your draft stock move up or down. I don't think there's a question as much of like DeGene and his athleticism, because just the tape and the film kind of, he jumps off the screen, I guess, at you. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen if he's going to have a pro day or there's going to be an extra time for him to do that. I would assume that he will, unless there has been a report I haven't seen. But I mean, he's an athlete. He's got a lot of hybrid ability. He can be corner. A lot of people have him projected as a safety in the league, but don't really hate that. I don't think it'll impact him as significantly as some of the other guys, whether they can test or not test. When we're talking about a corner, though, and I mentioned this in one of the last videos I did, shout out to Anthony DeBona of Pro Football Network for coming on. That was a really lengthy interview, a really lengthy video, but I figured, hey, you know what? Let's get something out there pre-combine, able to go through different players, potential options, things like that to watch. Quinyon Mitchell is my number one cornerback, and there's others I could totally get behind, lots of other options. But Anthony was on the same page, and like you mentioned, I mean, this dude is said to have run a 4.3 40. If he runs that at the combine, his draft stock, which is already trending upwards, his draft stock is going to be incredibly high because of the athleticism that you add to that. And, hey, Howie targets that, especially recently. You look at the draft history. If they test very high in athletic score, that's not a lock, but, it's seems to be moving up on Howie's draft board. So just keep that in mind as we're going through the combine over the next several days. Fanny Eagles fan, what's up? Said, I heard you mention J.C. Latham on one of your shorts. Have you seen his stats the last 2 years? What are your thoughts on him at right guard? And do you think he'll be gone before our 22nd pick? So I love J.C. Latham. I think he'll be gone. If he's not, he's a steal at 22. From what I've seen and from what I've read, scouts reports on him, I think that he would be a good pick. I would not necessarily like it just from the offensive side, but again, like if we're talking about value, if he's somehow there at 22, that to me, it's a no-brainer. I think you do have to make that selection. Lane Johnson even talked about him being a good option at right guard. because of the versatility, and said verbatim. The Inquirer had this on their article. I think it was Jeff McClain, but said verbatim, like, hey, Lane Johnson told Stout, this dude can play right guard for a couple seasons. Whenever I retire, he can slide right over to the right tackle and be my replacement. So as much as Lane loves Tyler Guyton, he also did say, he put out there as a disclaimer, like, hey, J.C. Latham is another dude. If he's available and he's out there, would definitely consider going and getting him. Again, is he going to make it until 22? Probably not. But if he is, like I say, I wouldn't totally hate it, even though I do prefer, like, we go after a defensive player in the first round. Alvin says, sup, Josh? How's baby girl doing? She is doing well. She is crying in the background a little bit, though, so some of you guys could probably hear that. They are in the other room, but she's doing well for the most part. We're adjusted. You know, it's life. So, yeah, NZ Philly fan says, hearing the crying baby. That's where we're at, you know, sometimes in the middle of recording and live shows and everything else. But still keep an eye out on the phone every once in a while in case I'm absolutely needed. You know, I might cut this short or briefly walk out of the studio for a second, but we're doing well. Michael says, I'd rather have talent over a former player's son. Yeah, I'm sure that's directed towards well, I mean, I guess there's a couple instances. I'm assuming that's a Jeremiah Trotter reference. .007, I say get CJ GJ. I don't think he'd cost too much. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, I see some of what the chat's saying too. I don't know that there's a chance he comes back. Cost-wise, you know, it's probably not out of the question, but I just don't think Howie is willing to pay it, nor is that relationship salvageable for the most part. Andrew, though, says here, I'll tell you exactly what we will do. If Mitchell, Byron Murphy, or Latu make it to 17, Howie is trading up. I could definitely see that. If they don't, then the other possibility in my mind is that he trades back. I've said it a couple different instances in shows, but to me, it's either going to be, I really think you're either trading up or trading back. I highly doubt we pick at 22. Maybe we do. Someone just falls in our lap and we don't have to move, but I think it'll be somewhere else. Jay, how's it going? So I've seen Jared Verse dominates games in his school in Berwick, Pennsylvania. Dude has pure power and violent hands. Yeah, there's another one. What is his let me look this up. You may know. I'm curious where he's predicted to go. Or kind of where his stock has been. Because I think he's definitely one you'd have to trade up, but I'm just curious where he's trending recently. Okay, so yeah, like 12th. I guess it's about. I was going to say it was a little bit higher than that, but let's see. I've got here. I'll show this. It's kind of cool. You guys may have already been using this, but NFL Draft Database. It's got sure. Alex said, saw Kool-Aid on the mock draft. Yeah, you're right. I've seen so many different ones at this point. So it's like Pro Football Network has one, ESPN has one. You could take your pick. There's been so many different guys that have been predicted to Philly. I think everybody can hear me now. A couple people are saying they couldn't hear me, and then there's some people that say that it's okay. I'm a little bit late too, so. Oh, whenever I brought up the graphic, hold on, let me see if. Oh, that's weird. Okay. I have not had that issue before. Hang on. Okay, so you can hear me here, but not on the screen share. Now can we? I think we're good now. Sorry, that was weird. So I was talking to myself for 5 minutes or so. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I've never had that issue before with the screen share, but for some reason now it's good. Now I can transition back and forth and there's no difference. So okay, well, appreciate you guys. Y'all were letting me know. I was just going around and continued to talk about that. So appreciate Devontae, said enjoy the cruise. Bird City, yo bro, love the channel, much love, appreciate it. Yep, Jason. Yeah, Jason. She's better now. She's okay. Wife has not texted me though, so we're all right. Andrea, what's up? How's it going? What is this, Don? How do you stay so skinny and chiseled? I guess I appreciate the compliment. I don't know. My brothers have been doing CrossFit for a while. They got me into it like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So maybe I attribute to that. Who knows? Jake, what's up, man? How's it going? Y'all go follow Jake if you haven't already. I've shared a number of his stuff, but seriously, like his content and where he gets his info, sources on meetings and contract numbers and everything else. Seriously. Go give him a follow. You won't regret it. He's been the first with several contracts, especially the meetings on Trotter Visit, Tyler Guyton, the top 30 request. I'm sure there's several others that I'm forgetting and not mentioning, but if you're on Twitter and you're looking for someone else to follow that you have not, go do that. Brandon just got here. Hi, Josh. What's up, Brandon? You didn't miss a whole lot. I was muted for like 5 minutes apparently, so. We're getting into questions of what do I eat. I'll answer it really quickly, but we can keep this on Eagles if you want to do it differently. I don't know, a decent amount of protein. I try to eat healthy. Usually it's like chicken and rice for lunches. I don't know, like a decent dinner. It's nothing crazy, although I just got a sponsorship with Factor. If you guys have heard of Factor, the kind of instant, I shouldn't say instant, it's quick meals, quick easy meals on the go. It'll be in a soon to be released video, so I'll talk about it more. But I don't know. I mean, there's just that, working out, drinking a lot of water. I don't know. But I appreciate it. I appreciate the compliment, I suppose. As Josh says, read the lips, you peasants. Well, I appreciate you guys hanging out for so long. What about second breakfast? Says Josh Davis. Love you guys. Thomas Mott is the man. Appreciate that. We won't have, by the way, Wednesday link we will not have tomorrow. I'm going to be headed out, and Thomas is as well. Let's see here. I think, are we good on is the audio good now? Appreciate it, Jake. Says love the content. Yeah, don't let NFL rumors get you. That's ridiculous. But anyway. Assuming we're good. I don't know why the technical difficulties tonight, but I've changed it over to the link, the cam link. Oh wait, hold up.
And Legarius Sneed.
Okay. I think I've got... 1 second. I figured it out. It'll be less echoey. My gosh. Talk about craziness here. So we had to move it because we were doing an ad and everything else, but it helps whenever you have it plugged in. So let's see. Okay. This should be, I'm hoping, come on. There we go. Just switched it over. It should change now. It should sound much better. That is, and we're going to test it on all the screens. Okay. Yeah, eventually, 35 minutes into the stream, got it figured out. We were long story short, we were making an ad. I had to move some stuff around, unplugged it, and I just forgot. I looked down here and it's not plugged in. So yeah, it was playing off of, I think, the camera mic, which is why it was so echoey. So appreciate you guys hanging out and letting me know. For sure, Devontae, without a doubt. Shout out to my wife for letting me stream on the late nights with us. She is the best. No doubt. The best MVP of the show, of the channel. Incredible. And shout out to her, too, because she does a lot with the ads that have happened, like the Bear Mattress and SeatGeek and stuff like that. She's helped out a ton. She's a videographer by trade, so, very helpful to get the pros touch on that. LA Kid, how did you meet Thomas? In college. We both went to Baylor at the student newspaper, and they went around and asked, hey, tell us, introduce yourself, tell us an interesting thing about yourself or whatever. And Thomas went first and said he was an Eagles fan. And so basically after we went through the intros, I think even at that point I was like, oh yeah, I was like, go Birds. But then after the intros, got to know each other, and we both covered the football team. And yeah, after that, just stayed relatively close. Then our paths separated, and we texted about the Eagles and everything. And then last year kind of reconnected a lot more so, because it's like, hey, you want to go to the NFC Championship game if we make it? It was kind of a joke. It was a semi-bet, but semi-joke. And then once they made it, then we texted each other and was like, well, I guess we're going. or 2 seasons ago. Jose, representing my birds all the way from Uvalde, Texas. Let's go. John, I appreciate it. Says, have a great time on the cruise. Twisty, just now learning this YouTube thing. Probably, yeah, that's what it feels like. We're we figured it out. It just took forever. I just didn't recognize it until then. Tim says we have to keep Swift. John says we have to re-sign Swift. Nate says you no longer sound like an amateur. Okay, well that's even better. That's what we're going for. Let's see. Jason said I wanted Swift since the draft. I'm going to be disappointed if he was only here for 1 year, a year where he was considerably underutilized. Yeah, I mean, I don't have the jersey, but I'm curious like how many people do. But if you invested in an Agent Zero jersey for 1 season, I mean, the first Agent Zero ever, and then he leaves, not that that's the main reason, you re-sign a guy, but still it's like you paid money for Agent Zero jersey, and it's still cool. It'll be, cool for forever because it was the first player, but I would love to see him here to keep that up, to be utilized better, more. He left a lot on the table, or he didn't necessarily, but the offense did. So you put him in with Kellen Moore, I would love to see it. But again, realistically, I don't know. He's the one out of those several different acquisitions we were talking about earlier that I'm just not sure. So maybe not. Let's see. Fanny says, how high do you think Jermaine Burton from Alabama will go? We need a wide receiver 3. That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure, honestly. I think, what is he? He's like third round, 4th round. We can try to look it up. Yeah, that's a good question though. Like how early do you draft if you're going to draft for a wide receiver 3? Let's see here. Yeah, it looks like 3rd round. Around a 101 is the projection, kind of the general consensus. I think he could be a good potential. But at that high, just with the needs that we have, maybe something changes in terms of free agency. If you address several holes in free agency, specifically on the defensive side, then maybe you use it in the draft. But if we're looking at 3rd round there, I don't know. Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky is another name that continues to be put out there quite a bit. I've seen him on some mock drafts and linked to Philly as far as a wide receiver 3. Maybe he's another option as well. Robert says, let's see. I hear you, but it sounds like your webcam mic is being used. Does it still sound that way? Or did it? I changed it to the mic. So if it sounds still funny, let me know. I thought I figured it out, but if maybe I didn't. It might just be one of those nights, but I'm curious if anyone else is experiencing that. While we're waiting on that answer, I guess Jay says, Josh, do you think they'd be better off moving Dean to outside linebacker and get a real downhill linebacker that can blow the gaps up? No, I mean, Dean's. I don't know. He's either going to be there. He's either going to be the guy in the middle, or he's just not going to work, in my opinion. I'm hopeful that he can, but the guy that you need to have next to him, I've talked about this. You got to have some size, someone that can help. Dean can be good in run stopping. I think I still believe that, but as far as coverage, that's where I feel like he might be a liability. Maybe he proves us wrong. Maybe he can answer those questions. But no, as far as outside linebacker, especially Fangio scheme, Dean is not the answer to move outside linebacker. Now, nor do I think that Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is. He's a little better than Dean, probably, but I don't know that he's the answer next to Nakobe Dean, as much as, some people might not enjoy hearing that or might disagree. Donovan says, if we don't sign Swift, I would go Gus Edwards or Zach Moss to pair with Gainwell. And with linebacker, let's try something we've never tried. Pay them. Let's get McQueen. Or Queen, I guess. But yeah, shouldn't have let TJ walk. No, we should not have. Maybe Howie finally will. Maybe he'll pay a linebacker. It would be strange to see. I'm not going to lie. It would be very strange to see. But getting Patrick Queen automatically changes things. And I mean, I've talked about it too, but there's lots of holes on the defense. No lie, we all realize that. But I don't know. I mean, finding an answer at linebacker to me is probably where it even starts. Yeah, there's struggles in the secondary. You got to find a safety, corner. You need some more D-line depth. But I don't know, just the way looking at teams that made deep postseason runs, even the last couple years, we could even be thrown in there. Like, granted, you didn't invest as many resources, obviously, with a TJ Edwards and a Kaiser White, but just play-wise, you got a lot more out of them than what you normally do out of a UDFA. So you get an undrafted free agent, you kind of hit on that one. That's not the norm. Howie's been fortunate, and he has at times. He's hit on players that have been an undrafted free agent. But I'm just saying, like, not everybody turns into TJ that way. Sometimes you do pay a guy, and he actually ends up being a stud, and you have to invest those resources at linebacker. So I think, yeah, in terms of getting the middle of the field shirt up, you have an athlete. You got Fangio. You need a linebacker. You need strong linebacker play. You need good safety play as well. Figure that one out, but also the intensity. You get a leader, someone who's intense, someone who has experience, who's been there before. Maybe Nakobe can be that. I know they want him to be. But yeah, I don't hate going with that acquisition. Depends on how much, he's going to want, because you're going to have to pay top dollar, especially with every team getting an extra 14% of cash, but could be a bidding war. Xavier says, I hope we don't pick up Sneed. I think that's going to be a waste of a roster spot and a waste of money. I just don't see it in him. He hasn't looked good with KC. Why would he be better? Bro, are you talking about L'Jarius Sneed, the same player? What do you mean he hasn't looked good? Is that sarcasm? Is that supposed to be sarcasm and maybe I didn't read it correctly? Like, L'Jarius Sneed is legit. I'm sorry, but he looked really good with KC. He's picked up penalties. I mean, I'll give you that. Led the league in penalties. But a physical lockdown corner? I mean, heck, look what he did at Tyreek Hill. I know he got beat on one play in the Ravens game, but even the punch-out fumble. Sneed is physical. Sneed is intense. What about second breakfast? They have to cut burnt berry. Yeah, probably figure out a way to do that. There can't be a way that he hangs around, even though Howie Roseman said he's part of our plans for 2024. In my opinion, that's a plan. I tweeted this out, so I'll throw this up here. But most of y'all probably already saw this. But he did say that he's part of the plans. However, it's just a plan called June 1st, which is to cut him post June 1. Who knows? Andrew says Malachi Corley, yep, or Malik Washington. Okay, yep. These are two wide receivers I want Howie to draft. One of these players would be epic. Definitely add. I mean, can you imagine one of those to the add him to the offense with Kellen Moore? Would certainly be a dynamic addition there. Granted, again, there's only so many mouths to feed, but yeah, I'm with you. You get either one of those guys, really. Elaine, hi Josh. We need to sign Swifty ASAP. How's your beautiful family doing? Go Birds. Go Birds. I appreciate that. We're doing well. There was a little bit of crying in the background earlier, but we're good. I'm checking the phone too. We're all good. We're a little better on sleep, but very blessed. So I appreciate it. Also said, do you think we'll get Trotter Jr.? I don't think so. I kind of talked about it on the last video that I did with Jeremiah Trotter, and shout out to Devin Jackson of the Inquirer. He's had a lot of good breakdowns as far as the draft and combine content and things like that. But I really don't. I think there's better options as far as linebacker goes, especially in the draft. If you're going to look at what pairs best for Philly, and especially if you're taking into account, like we've been talking about, Nakobe Dean being the guy. You know, if Nakobe wasn't here, then I could see a better case to be made, because you could say, well, we don't already have someone. I know they're not the same player. I know they don't play the exact same, but they're the same size. And not that that's everything, but they are the same size. And Jeremiah Trotter Jr., not the greatest in coverage. I mean, especially whenever he is tested in the flats. I think his vertical range, especially over the middle of the field, is something that's been knocked on a couple different scouting reports that I've seen, not just Pro Football Network, but there's another one. I think it was from, might have been PFF or it might have been NFL.com's, but there's another one of being just, coverage questions. He can make great plays, no doubt. I mean, he can, 5.5 sacks last season, 6.5 the year before. Ability to get to the quarterback, and it's more in that like spy setting is where that comes from most of the time, either spy or kind of a delayed blitz. He's got potential. I mean, I think he'll be a good NFL player. It's just like whenever it comes down to the Eagles, to me, there's better options. Edgerrin Cooper is a bigger linebacker, 8 sacks last season. I think if you add, him, but there is still, a question of coverage. Is he going to be the answer? But if you want to look at maybe on the other side of that, you could throw in a Junior Colson, who, I mean, that's kind of what he's known for, is a good, solid coverage linebacker, and then even a Cedric Gray from North Carolina. That's another one that I talked about in the recent video. So just watching on tape and seeing those guys play, again, overall, does it say that, for example, like Cedric Gray is better than Trotter Jr.? No, but like scheme-wise and scheme fit, that's where I could argue maybe so. Because you need athletic, fast linebackers that can cover. And the coverage part to me is just something that I don't know 100%. Now, was Trotter Jr. asked to do that as often in Clemson? Perhaps if you put him in a different system, he could be better at it. It's just that he didn't get asked to do it too many times. But it's still just a question mark. If I've got something on tape to say, well, it feels like there might be a better option here based on our scheme, based on what Fangio wants, then that's kind of where I would lean toward. The real RMP says Sneed's going to get franchise tag. Stop dreaming about him. Yeah, probably so. Sydney family, what's up? Says congrats on the huge subs you have now pretty fast, Josh. I appreciate that. Yeah, we went over 47,000 subs, so appreciate you guys. Y'all are the best. You know that for sure. Crazy how quickly we got there. Getting close to 50,000, which is unreal, but appreciate that. Also asks, is McKinney an option being cheaper at safety? I don't know that I would say McKinney is an option cheaper at safety. He is an option at safety. I like the idea of a Xavier McKinney. But, yeah, he's going to be pretty expensive. Well, off the top of my head, the last time we were looking at him, what was it, 16? Might be more than that. Okay, no. I'm thinking of somebody else. Yeah, it's that's better. Why was I thinking 16? Who else was I thinking about? It's 10.4. I don't know why I was thinking 16. Maybe I'm losing it. Or was that Sneed? Was that Sneed that we were looking up a second ago? Or on a different stream? Yeah, so 10.4. It's not awful. Again, I don't know necessarily at what point, do we quantify that as cheap or cheaper? Yeah, that's right. I would certainly pay that. You got to figure out, the other acquisitions that we're going to do. But for a younger, established safety, someone who could play well, you don't really have as many question marks on, and you need strong safety play. To me, it makes a whole lot of sense. I am curious to see, though, like on these average annual salaries, Spot Tracks is usually pretty on. They see, you take the comparable players, you match up the recent contracts, and that's where you get your estimator from. But with the way that the cap just increased, I'm interested to see like how many of these are off and like how far they are off. Are we getting like a consistent 15% higher than what these numbers are because that's what the cap increased to, or is it about the same? Like how many guys are going to reset the market or help to reset the market versus just like, okay, yeah, hey, that's the going rate. That's about what you're going to pay somebody. Yeah, it was Sneed that I was thinking of. There you go, 16.3. I don't know why I was getting the 16 number, but yeah, I like Xavier McKinney, certainly as a safety option. Going back to Xavier's comment on Sneed, said he had 0 sacks, only 2 interceptions, and 78 combined tackles this year. Just don't think that's really impressive, but maybe it's just me in my opinion. It's fine. Everybody has opinion. I think to me, though, sometimes cornerback stats are like meaningless. To me, he played a lot better than those stats did. Sometimes, sure, hey, interceptions matter and they mean a lot, that you're dominant and you're a ball hawk and picking off the ball and everything else. But I think the way that he played was just not as many opportunities at getting picks. But he made life, terrible for receivers. If you go back and watch games of his coverage, you just don't. I don't know. You just don't have fun in the game. I don't think. Tyreek Hill even admitted it. He was like, "That dude's a beast," but it was not fun, right? He pressed. What was it? He sent me all the way to Cancun or something like that. Fitness Warrior, what's up? I'm doing well. After a little technical difficulties, you're doing well. Andrew Nathan, his brother Josiah Trotter is 6'3", 220 and plays linebacker. He's a redshirt freshman, I believe. Yeah, let's see. Was he... Yeah, there you go, at West Virginia. And you're correct, redshirt freshman. I actually got his Instagram up there and Twitter in case anybody wants to go follow Josiah_Trotter40. But West Virginia is another Trotter option. Dylan, how's it going? So just wondering your opinion on Peyton Wilson from NC State. He's had injuries in the past, but just curious your take on him. Yeah, I think that he's a total wild card, honestly. I think that I think there's a lot of potential with Peyton Wilson, but like you said, and the injuries, I just don't know. Like the medical is going to be huge, and so teams are going to meet with him this week. It'll be also very important, I think, the top 30 visits, especially for a Peyton Wilson. I could be totally off here, and maybe somebody just drafts him, on a whim, I suppose. But most teams use the top 30 visits in a understandable fashion of like, okay, hey, we're really interested in this player. We might want to take him. So especially with a player who's dealt with injuries like a Peyton Wilson, I'd want to get him in the building, team doctors to look at him, review, analyze, get all the info that I possibly can to say, okay, is there concern about re-injury? Is there concern that the injuries he already had is going to limit him, especially in long-term playing wise? So yeah, honestly, to me, I don't hate it. I would just say, first off, he's got to come in for a top 30 visit if Philly is going to even be remotely interested in him. So if he doesn't come in for a top 30, I would think that it's less likely. It's not impossible. It's very, very much less likely, if that's the way to say that. But yeah, he has a lot of flexibility. I mean, he can do both run stop coverage. There's a lot to like. I think that he's second round, potential second to third, somewhere in that range, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. But again, just going to come down to the injury history with the 2 torn ACLs and the shoulder injury. Obviously lots of players in the draft, you're going to be trying to get as much info as possible on like injury history and things like that. But yeah, second round is right now where it's trending. So, and 54th, I guess, is where it's currently. But I think that he's got a lot of good potential. Just about that, past injuries, it always gets me a little bit anxious, not going to lie. I think for a lot of us, you think about past drafts and getting players that, didn't pan out necessarily. And so that comes into play, but that's with everyone. So Ken Lewis, how's it going? Says, I'm cool with whatever as long as Bradbury ain't here. I don't think that he will be, but yeah, I'm with you. You got to figure out a way to move on from that. Surely Howie will. He said he's a part of his plans, like we were mentioning a second ago, but there's a way to get out of that. Michael, how's it going, man? I hope we draft a center in the first round. Cam isn't the guy. I don't know. I think we briefly touched on this, maybe even from last time, but I think he can be. I really do have high hopes for him. Plus, how do you even, I'm curious, what makes you think he's not the guy? We haven't even really been able to see him at center. He's not the guy at right guard. I'll give you that. I think he's going to be a really good center, honestly. I mean, Jackson Powers Johnson is a great prospect and, would be cool to have, but I mean, I'm not going out there and selecting him because I'm saying, oh, Cam Jurgens is not it. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but like if I look at the offensive line, one of the last questions that I have, and again, maybe I shouldn't feel this way, but like if Jason Kelce leaves, Cam Jurgens slides in there, and no, I'm not expecting him to be at Jason Kelce level, but there's not drastic concerns on my part. I'm kind of like, okay, hey, Cam Jurgens is athletic. He's got potential. He was groomed to be a center. He had to play right guard for one season. I think he's going to be okay. Jason says, I would give Kevin Byard another shot. Would really depend on what that contract is. I don't know. Josh says, I think Howie doesn't want to pay Sneed. He likes to pay mid-tier players with high upside. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to be willing to trade and pay Sneed, which is what it sounds like. It sounds like the Chiefs are going to tag Sneed, and if they can't get a deal done, a long-term deal, then they're going to try to trade him. But there's so many possibilities, and again, I'm not saying that it's like equivalent to a Sneed, but if you have to trade some draft capital, or I mean, I guess you could see if they want James Bradbury, but if you have to trade any legit capital and then also say, oh yeah, and we have to pay someone, I do agree that I don't think Howie's going to go and do that. It feels less likely given the, recent news from the Chiefs and where they're at with Sneed, what they're looking to do. But again, we've seen crazier things happen. Tristan says, who's your top DB target for us? And also said, opinions and pick who you'd want. 22, DeJean, more versatile. Quinion Mitchell. 50, JT Sanders, or rather a safety instead of a tight end. 53, Cooper Colson. Yeah, I would say, for sure, I've kind of talked about it a little bit as far as like Quinion Mitchell, but that to me is where I would go. I know that there's a lot to like about DeJean, but Quinion Mitchell is the top corner. I would love it at 22. I don't think that he makes it to 22. I'm feeling like, especially after the combine, he's going to be in the teens. But if I could pick, yeah, I'm taking Quinion Mitchell as the corner. At 50, again, I mean, who knows? Free agency is going to totally change all these hypotheticals. But as of right now at 50, I would take a safety. There's decent options for sure if you go tight end, but I would take a safety. I don't know who's going to be available at 50. It'd be awesome if Cameron Kitchens is there. I don't know that he will be, but there's a couple of different options for the safety side. Definitely go defense. And, then at 53, like you're asking there, is it would be probably unlike Howie to go 3 straight on defense. So it may not happen, but I wouldn't mind it personally. And I don't know. As of right now, probably Edgerrin Cooper. But I really like Junior Colson, especially for our defense. Again, it comes down to scheme fit. Maybe not for all teams, but I could see a world Junior Colson with his coverage ability and his size. Maybe so. He doesn't have a lot of productivity. I mean, he's just racking up tackles basically. So he's coverage good, for the most part, been graded as a definitely better than average or, better than most linebackers in the draft for coverage, but didn't have an interception, didn't have a forced fumble, I believe, or a fumble recovery or a sack last season. I mean, it was just tackles. I think it was like 95 tackles if I'm remembering off the top of my head. So, we just had kind of that with Zach Cunningham. He was the only linebacker out of all linebackers that played 10 or more games this past year to not have a forced fumble recovery, or interception or sack. The only one. So, you could knock that. I do like it whenever you have some stats also along with the tackles. Tackles are fine. Tackles are good with linebacker, but I don't know. I would say probably you go with Edgerrin Cooper there. If he's not available, though, I mean, I'd still be happy with a Junior Colson. Fitness Warrior, how did you feel about the interviews? Yeah, I felt, I don't know, I felt okay, I guess. It was a mixture of, for anybody watching it live, it was a mixture of like questions from, because, it's not just the Philly media, it's the combine. So some people have their stories to get in about other aspects, so they want to get their comments and things like that. There was clearly some Georgia reporter that was asking about Kirby Smart, and he asked Howie, he asked Nick their feelings, and, the Georgia players and all this other stuff. It's cool. It happens. You had a Colts reporter asking questions about, what do they think about Shane Steichen and his improvement, or was it surprising that the season that he had? So, you get some of those. It probably wasn't the setting, even though I saw some people on Twitter saying like, why are we not asking about Big Dom and controlling Sirianni and stuff like that? Like, I don't know. To me, it's not that big of a story because I'm really not buying it for the most part. It seems too outlandish. I get that you could need to or want to ask it and have a follow-up, but, just in general, I thought it was fine. Howie is great at what he does for a number of reasons. He's smooth. When he interviews, you ask him questions. He's, in a way, it's like he can give an answer that doesn't really answer, if that makes sense, but it still comes across as like he very much, like, gave you a lot of info. I don't know if I'm saying that the best way, but there's a reason he's a GM, and there's a reason that he can pull off some really, really good trades. So, the smooth talk and being able to do that, I thought it was fine. He was asked about directions of the team and kind of admitted that, yeah, there's some mistakes at times. And so we've needed to adjust that. Now, he did say it's less likely that they go after a defensive tackle because of the depth that they have, and especially the youth there. I mean, that's not, it's not earth-shattering or, shocking information. I think we all could have gleaned that from just the team makeup. But, yeah, I thought it was fine. He says listening to Fangio or trying to get his input on the defense, that'll somewhat play a part. It's not like Fangio gets all say on it either, but he does get to play a part for sure, because it's his defense. So what player personnel works out. Also with Sirianni, feels like he's leaning towards Howie mentioning like encouraging Sirianni basically, or looking at the youth and being like, hey, we need to play these players. So it could be a good thing. Again, as far as like developing guys, we've talked about that a number of times. Like, man, why can we not develop players, especially at certain positions? We can get someone off of free agency, or we can trade for someone. We just can't develop our own at times. And, maybe Howie's feeling that, or it's just a personal preference of his now. But he was saying like, hey, we had to get some guys out there. And you have a lot of defenders. So I think it can be a benefit. Ultimately, it wasn't the craziest press conference interview, which I don't know that I necessarily expected that it would be. But, yeah. And then Sirianni, talking about his changes. A lot of the same similar stuff, honestly, that was just kind of repeated in a different way from the end of season presser. But, yeah, he did. I will say, of the many things that he was asked, Sirianni did address the report or the speculation or whatever from, saying he treats players differently in the locker room or whatever. I don't know. For anybody that's played sports, like, you can take it and just blow it up out of proportion and make it this big, massive story of, oh my gosh, he's playing favorites, and, the locker room was divided and they hated Sirianni for that, and vets got frustrated and upset and blah, blah, blah. I'm not really buying it to that extent. Was there a little bit of maybe frustration? Who knows? But in a losing season, you kind of start finding everything that irritates you. I don't know. It's just me, but speaking from, experience of just playing sports, like, it's not fun to lose. Like, everybody knows that. If you play sports, I don't know how you enjoy that. But like Sirianni said, he's like, every person is different. So for lack of a better term, you push the right buttons for certain people that don't work for others. And everybody's different. Everybody responds to coaching differently. I can appreciate that. Hey, some people need a guy who gets in their face and yells at them and gets them motivated. Some people are motivated by nature, and they don't need you to get in their face. Like, if I mess up, I know I messed up. You don't need to tell me. But some people, they respond better to it. So I'm fine with if he's treating players differently. I just think that the way that one Inquirer story, I won't name who that was, but it's just made to look even more like I don't know if it's a full-blown smear piece on Sirianni, but as much reports have come out recently, it's just like it felt like just a piling on type of deal. I don't know. The number of vets who have come out and spoken vocally about Sirianni, how great he is, how he takes up for the team and everything else, that's where I'm like, I'm not too concerned, because if it was a legitimate issue, yes, I've been critical of Sirianni. For me, it's more scheme-wise, offensive mindset, X's and O's. I just don't think that he's the guy there. But being in the locker room, having the buy-in from the players, if he didn't have that, to me, there's no way that Jeffrey Lurie would have let him hang around. He wouldn't have brought him in and said, hey, well, tell me about your plan this coming season, if he already was like, you've lost the locker room. Nobody wants you to be there. So, I don't know. Overall, interviews were fine. Yeah, seen Chris, Howie did that for AJ, trade and paid. It's not impossible. Not saying that. Sydney Family says needs more depth at D-line for less snaps but better energy. Yeah, and we need Jordan Davis to, be in a little bit better shape. Will Dean stay healthy? Dang. Ken says, nope. Next question. It's significantly doubting him. Brian says, pay the money for Winfield, Tampa Bay, need 2 good safeties. Well, unfortunately, don't think that we can do that, because they're not going to let him go. They're doing the franchise tag if they can't get him to a long-term deal. So, yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Fitness Warrior brings up about the interview. I didn't mention that as much, but yeah, Howie's saying he spent a lot on the offense. Now that he has to look more on the defense, that's true. Yeah. Kind of reiterated too, like the point that we had heard, what was it, like a week ago, maybe? It was a week or two ago, just a report of investing more heavily in linebacker. So, I don't know. I still don't know that I'm saying we're going to get a Patrick Queen or, a big acquisition that way. But still, if it's somewhere in between, I would be happy with it. Josh thinks it's going to be Kellen Moore's team by week 6. That'd be pretty quick, pretty early. Yeah, Twisty's saying if he takes over by then, this season is going to be worse than last, without a doubt. If he takes over by week 6, I don't know what that record is. That record's 1-5, 2-4. Because even if you're 500, there's no one's taking over. Maybe even at 2-4, you're not. So you might even have to be 1-5 or 0-6. Yeah, Nate asking the question kind of like I was talking about, but what do you make of the locker room talk about the stars being treated differently? Jalen's always asked to be coached hard. I think it's blown out of proportion. Again, like I was saying a second ago, I think, yes, people are treated differently in the sense of how they respond to certain things, but I don't think it's, I don't know. I really don't think it's preferential treatment to an extent. There's probably a little, yes, because again, anybody who's been in a locker room playing sports, it feels like that's just about everywhere. So, you know what? Yeah, but that's life. That's in the locker room. I don't think it's to the extreme of what the report made it out to be. And I mean, heck, even at training camp last season, like Jalen got all this money and he's the guy, MVP favorite. He just played ridiculous in the Super Bowl, all these things. But Jalen messed up on a rep, and I specifically remember because I did a video on it, and we talked about it quite a bit. But Sirianni laid into him. He, you can't be making those mistakes. It's going to cost us, blah, blah, blah. Jalen got down and did push-ups right in front of everyone. So, again, you're right. He does ask to be coached hard. I don't think that it's to the extreme. Is there a little bit of favoritism? Sure, maybe. But, again, I would just question or say, like, where does that not happen within teams or just sports in general? I mean, it just feels like that is kind of a given. You usually see that from coaches and specific players. It's like, oh, okay, hey, they're just a little bit closer with someone. Jay, Kellen Moore is going to be, I'm going to show you how to drive this Lambo. Brian says, go Birds from Hawaii. There you go. Go Birds. Appreciate you hanging out. Jason McDavid also re-signed Swift. Yeah, I agree with this. I agree with Andrew. This year is going to be like the NBA free agency. It is, players are going to get paid, and it's going to feel like people are like being significantly overvalued, I think. So I'm already bracing myself whenever we see some contracts to go like, all right, that's the going rate for somebody now. I talked about it in the video I did yesterday. But yeah, Anthony had a good tweet about that. Just some examples of NBA contracts where you look at now and you go, wow, that dude took advantage of it for sure. Get your money while you can. Maybe sadly that's where DeAndre Swift is. That's what makes me think he might not be coming back. We'll see. Sydney family, what time is it in Texas? 3 p.m. Wednesday in Sydney. Yes, it's a crazy time difference, but it is 8:30 p.m. here. Storm Crow, go Birds from Kenosha, Wisconsin. There you go. My wife is from Racine, Wisconsin. Alexander using the emojis. I love it. Zach, how's it going? Says, what are your thoughts on Trey Benson? Big and fast, possible second, third round pick. Yeah, I have not really gotten to Trey Benson much, and honestly, I haven't even gotten to hardly any running backs, sadly. So I don't have a whole lot of great thoughts, really. I've gotten to a few, but mainly it was the couple that we talked about in the video. I think it was on Sunday that I released it with Anthony. So I don't know. I'd have to do some more research. Feels like Bucky Irving is like the one consistent in terms of like running backs are all over the place from mock drafts that I've seen and rankings and all of them. But Bucky Irving is the one to me that it seems like he's at least consistent toward the top in people's rankings. But then the other guys feel like they're all over the place. Some people are high on one and they're not on the other. But yeah, I quite honestly don't know as much. So I still need to take a look at that, which is probably important to do because, again, like I've been talking about, I don't know that DeAndre Swift is going to be coming back. I'm leaning towards him not. So it does feel like a running back or selecting a running back is a possibility. I don't know about, second or third round pick. That feels a little bit high. Seems like we'll probably use one of our fifth round selections on a running back if we go that route. But we'll see. I know Jawar Jordan was the one from Anthony that he was pretty high on, or a very, very late round sleeper of the Dylan Lawby from New Hampshire. So kind of the Swiss Army knife potential. But yeah, I need to look at Trey a little bit more and a couple of the other running backs. Chester, appreciate it. How's your baby doing? She is doing well. We're still, taking it day by day, but doing well. Frank from Philly, you're here. You're late, but you're here. Appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out. LA Kid, thoughts on a Milton Williams extension? Feels like we're going to let him walk, which I'm not a fan of. I don't know. I don't necessarily know that it means we're going to let him walk. I do think that he's going to have a really good season. He should get more reps, I think, just the way the roster breaks down now, especially, if Fletch isn't coming back, it seems like he will. It's going to be a contract year for him, too, like you're talking about. So some guys, where it won't surprise me if we get an extension done with Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson, take care of those early, get them done. Sometimes, it pays to wait, I guess, and let a guy prove himself. But yeah, I don't know that I would necessarily say that it's a for sure letting him walk. But production-wise, it's been in that spot of like, okay, he's produced at times, but he also has had kind of a lack of just playing time in general to get on the field and produce. So I guess to your point, I do understand it. Like if he has a breakout year and all of a sudden commands major money, then yeah, do you work out a deal with him, or you say, well, hey, we've already got Jalen Carter, we got Jordan Davis, got some other depth. Maybe you do let him go because he priced himself out of the market. But if it's just an average season, then maybe. I still think there's a possibility because you need the depth. Howie's always going to invest in the D-line. If Milton Williams takes that next step, or it's just the fact that he gets some more playing time and that makes him show up a lot more, I wouldn't say it's out of the question. I wouldn't say it's impossible. But I can also understand it too. On the flip side of it, it's like, yes, he hasn't played a whole lot, but in the moments, it's been kind of the inconsistency to where I don't know that I necessarily would go out there and be like, yeah, I'm ready to just pay up. I'm ready to pay, big money or a big extension. or something like that. And then even if I'm on Milton Williams' side, I'm probably not ready to cash in. I'm probably saying like, no, I'm going to bet on myself this year. This is my best chance now. If Fletch is leaving, I'm going to get more reps. I'm going to get more playing time. I'm going to have a breakout season. I'm going to go to free agency, or you pay me. You pay me big money, and I stick around here. So, yeah, it's probably on both sides, but I don't know that I would completely rule it out. Daniel Rodriguez, how's it going? Says, who do you like at wide receiver to be our wide receiver 3? I don't know. I feel like right now it's connections with Kellen Moore. So, I mean, I've mentioned it a couple times, but Noah Brown seems like a realistic possibility in free agency. You could see a signing there. Maybe a Kendrick Bourne. You could also invest in the draft for sure. I mean, that's not an unrealistic possibility either. I don't know. You've got a lot of youth on defense, so perhaps Howie goes in there and, signs some guys to the defense, but he uses one of those draft picks on a wide receiver, and then in that case, yeah, maybe you go out there and make a splash for a wide receiver 3. Again, like we were mentioning earlier, like Malachi Corley is the one that seems to be projected quite a bit. I know a lot of people talk about Ladd McConkey. I just don't know that he's available at where you would realistically want to take a wide receiver 3 for this offense. But again, if I had to guess as of right now, who's going to be, seems like it would be, or just, I don't know, feels realistic. You could go after a free agent signing there. Frank from Philly. How do you feel about our team so far since we have some new players on the squad? Do we have a chance at the Super Bowl this year? Okay, I'm going to be real. At the current present moment, I don't like our chances for the Super Bowl. But I mean, realistically, like, who actually feels like we have great chance for the Super Bowl? As of right now, free agency is huge. Draft is huge for our chances. But currently, I mean, no. Like, the players that we've signed, there have been a couple. They're really depth acquisitions. There's no, I don't know, earth shakers that we've gotten. Austin Watkins, hey, maybe he ends up doing something. Shaq. Why am I drawing a blank on his last name? Was it Shaq Davis? Drawing a blank there. But again, some wide receiver depth, some other guys. But, so far, no, there's too many questions in my mind. You got to get so many pieces on the defense figured out, whether it's, hey, you know what, we're going to roll with some of these young guys, or we're going to sign some vets. On the offensive side, who's going to be back? Who's needing to slide over into positions? Are we going to have DeAndre Swift? Are we going with a different running back? So, I would say as far as Super Bowl chances, I'm not feeling great. I don't think that that's realistic because there's so many things that we got to get addressed. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think that there's a route to get there, but Howie needs to have a really good free agency, and we need to get a couple different immediate impact players from the draft, really. You got to at least have one. That's a given. You got to have for sure one, but I think you got to have 2 immediate impact players from the draft. Be fortunate in one of your selections in the second round and make something happen. Now, I will say that people have asked me what's my February prediction for a record, and I've been on record of saying it's like 10 or 11 wins, so I know that's very optimistic. I'm just saying as far as wins versus Super Bowl realistic chances, I think the prediction is that I'm optimistic we're going to make a couple good acquisitions, and that it is possible for us to get to the 11 wins. But again, just currently present, like you're asking, I don't know. There's work to do. Cool Rains ask, when are you thinking to do your mock drafts? Yeah, I'm kind of going back and forth on it, honestly. It'll for sure be after free agency. So I will say that. That is a given. I don't know. We could do it. It'll most likely be on Friday nights is what I'm thinking. So the Friday night hangouts will be probably when we do the mock drafts. But after free agency has kind of died down a little bit and we have a better idea of what players are going to be on here so we know the holes that we need. I don't know. I don't want to do it too early, but I also don't want to do it too late where all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, we're only going to get one mock draft in. I also will probably do like standalone videos for mock drafts, so it'll be separate from the live ones. But I'm thinking maybe like end of March, just looking at the schedule here, like end of March, maybe very beginning of April. We'll see. I might get impatient and just be like, all right, let's do it. Let's just go for it. But it will definitely be, once some of the free agency has died down and we have a better idea of what this team makeup's going to be. Fitness Warrior, how do you feel about Florida State wide receiver Johnny Wilson? I think Johnny Wilson's interesting. He's what, like 6'7"? Curious to see, like, will he play tight end for whoever he would go to, or is he a potential wide receiver? And I think he can. I think he can play wide receiver, but some teams are saying, or I guess the projection is that he might be a receiving tight end option of sorts. It's a possibility. I don't know if it's a realistic option for the Eagles, but the outliers are always fascinating to me, and whether that's like speed or size or a combination of those, and the fact that with his ability as a receiver and being at that size, it's intriguing. He is for sure intriguing. You watch some of the tape on him, and I know there's several. I think the one that sticks out to me is. What's the dude? The Louisville corner. Oh, why am I drawing a blank now? Is it Brownlee? Brownlee Jr.? I think that's who it is. Brownlee is on him, and they throw a fade in the back of the end zone. It's like, what are you going to do to stop that? I don't care what corner you are. He's 6'7". Ball placement is perfect. Good luck. It's an automatic touchdown. So he's going to present some mismatches for sure, and somebody will probably take him for that very reason. But I don't know. With us, maybe not so much of a likelihood there, but maybe. He is an intriguing prospect, though, for sure. Ernie says, Josh, would you do this? Trade back your first and third round for a first and second. I mean, I don't know exactly more of the context to that, but I would say yes, depending on what you're getting back. But, hey, if first and trade back your first and third round. I mean, I'm curious to exactly where that goes, because if we're getting rid of a first and a third to get a first and a second, I mean, that just inherently sounds better, depending on where those selections are. But yeah, just from the immediate thought there, for sure, yeah, trade. Maybe it depends on who's available, but yeah, I would do that. Frankie Ray, Josh, how's the mattress? LOL. I'm seriously thinking of ordering one. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so anybody that's curious or wondering what that's about, I've got a sponsorship with Bear Mattress. So, I got a link from the previous video that I did, the 30-minute one from Sunday that dropped, not the most recent. But yeah, I mean, it's really good, man. I it's maybe going to sound like I'm selling you here, but I don't get anything extra for people purchasing it through mine, so I'll just tell you that straight up. Like they just pay me to talk about their things. But I was skeptical, and they're like, "Hey, we'll send you a mattress. We'll let you try it out. Like you don't have to pay for it or anything." So I was like, "All right. I mean, if you're gonna do that, like, yeah, I'll give it a shot." But it was better than I thought, because at first when it shows up in the box, I'm like, "What the heck?" Like, and it was difficult. If you watch the ad, I had to get my brother John to help me because we had to, move it to the other room, and it's kind of a bulky package. So I will say, if you do it, make sure you have some help. It's a little bit harder with the way that setup is, but once you get it in the room, I mean, we just open it up and put it out on the box springs and give it. I think it's like 3 hours or something like that. They say don't lay on it for 3 hours. But yeah, it was much better than I thought it would be. It was really really great. I've normally gone to mattress stores and like actually tried them out before I bought them. It's the first time I've ever just like, all right, hey, online, never tried it. But yeah, that you go through online, you probably saw it if you're asking me, but they have different options for how you sleep, and it changes the adjustment of the mattress and things like that. So we got like the super soft option, but yeah, I'd say give it a shot. It's a free trial for 120 days too. So if you don't like it, they'll take it back. So far so good. We've only had it like a month, so it's not like I can give you a super long endorsement, but still, I mean, right as of right now, I'm liking it. Tracy Ann, my initial thoughts on Johnny Wilson. That dude is tall. Yeah, this is about my expert analysis so far. Yeah, he is tall. He presents some challenges. I'm hoping that Sydney family's not right and the pick 22 will be in the trenches, but it does seem like that would be the case, or could be, with what Howie does. I hope it's a corner. Natalia says, do you think Howie drafts a right tackle this year? Maybe. Could be Tyler Guyton. Lane Johnson likes him, and, you add to the trenches. Wouldn't be crazy as much as I wouldn't just love it. But I am with Zach. Yes, right there. Won't have an opinion on this team until I see what happens in free agency and the draft. Lots of moves to do. Sydney family, Josh needs to sit back and analyze the situation first, not run into the fire. I think that, yeah, it's everybody. We're not going to jump to conclusions, I suppose. Fitness Warrior, he's fast. I think they have too much faith in Ngata. Yeah, Joseph Ngata, again, lots of potential there. Kept him around for a reason. Maybe so. DJ Matic, I hope the PB&J was good. It's kind of a random comment there, but Sydney Family, what happened to No-Show Penny? Is he a free agent again? Yeah, I mean, he got a 1 year, so he should, or I guess he will be a free agent, but highly doubt he comes back after the very limited or basically non-existent action. I did not jump on the mattress. My daughter did. She loved it. She enjoyed it. Anytime a new bed, she was like, all right, here you go. Oh, yes, like Fitness Warrior says, make sure to use the code Philly Special when you go to the checkout. It'll give you the extra discount as opposed to what's just the regular discount. The Activist, what do you think about Frankie Louvu at middle linebacker? I think it's a good possibility. You know, Frankie Louvu, Patrick Queen, Azeez Al-Shire. Those seem to be the kind of the three that keep getting thrown out there in free agency as possibilities. Willie Gay, too, I should say. I think Willie Gay's been linked a couple different times. But yeah, like you got the hybrid flexibility of Louvu, what he presents on the field, a bigger linebacker. I wouldn't mind that pairing, especially, again, it feels like it's an automatic given that you're going with Nakobe Dean. So I'd be happy with Louvu. Just the only thing that I come back to with all the big linebacker signings or the big free agents like a Patrick Queen, like a Frankie Louvu, is the cap and the way that is and the teams that have money to spend. I don't know if Howie's willing to spend for the top guy or if it's just kind of like, hey, we'll get that second tier. Not the first tier linebackers, but we'll get that second tier and bring him in. That's where I would lean towards if he's going to make a bigger splash that we're not quite used to. Smitty City says, I really like the Stiggers guy that's in the CFL. Do you think we will take a chance on him? Possibly. I think he's got a really good story and, did the video on him, about a week ago or something like that. But he messaged me on Twitter and said he appreciated it basically. But there's some potential. There's possibility. It's very few times, I guess, that you see a guy that didn't actually play college ball and just went straight to 7-on-7 or the I think that's what it was. Was it the 7 or no, the fan I'm drawing a blank on what it's called. It's like the fan led or fan called plays or something like that league, and then he goes to the CFL. But yeah, like rookie of the year, 5 interceptions, made some plays. I think the biggest thing for him, honestly, is going to be his pro day, which he's having, I think, March 15th in Atlanta. So I've been trying to push Thomas to swing on by wherever the high school is in Atlanta that he's going to do it at. We'll see if Thomas actually do that. But if he tests well, I think that's really what it comes down to. If he runs a good speed, I don't know what 40 time he'd necessarily have to go with, but it's not like he has to run a 4.3. He's predicted or projected to be 5th round, I think was the last time that I saw. 5th or 6th round there. So to me, he's worth a shot. Yeah, you take a flyer on him. We have a ton of 5th round comp picks. So, if you're going to go with someone. But yeah, I think that there's not as many questions. He could work on a little bit of technique. I've seen some scouting reports there. But overall, I think it's a lot of the athleticism score. Can he hold up as far as that side? And then you're good to go. Oh, Nate, going back to the mattress question. How do you get it back in the box? Yeah, that one is, unfortunately, once you take it out of the box, it's not going to deflate. It's not like an air mattress, I suppose. But if you return it, I think it's my understanding that there's some assistance with that. So you don't actually have to get it in the box and ship it yourself and everything because it's cumbersome. It's quite a bit. Once you get it out, I mean, you're kind of like, all right, it's here until somebody else wants to go pick it up. But you don't have to disassemble it or deflate it or anything like that because it's not an air mattress. Easy drop-in. Josh, do you think we will pick up a cornerback in free agency or draft? Which cornerback you think would fit best in both? Good question. Um, I feel like, man, I've kind of gone back and forth just thinking about it, but I feel like you could go probably drafting a corner. I mean, I love Quinion Mitchell, so that's what I keep coming back to in my mind. That's the first place that it goes. So if I got my pick, my selection, I would say draft a corner. But yeah, Quinion Mitchell, that's my favorite there. There's tons of good options though, so it's not like I'd be super upset if you don't get a Quinion Mitchell. You could get a Cooper DeJean. I know there's a little bit more of, hey, maybe he's a safety, but that hybrid ability might be better in a Fangio defense. You know, you get a guy who has that ability to play corner, can play safety, is physical, not afraid to make tackles. You know, Cooper DeJean might be good. Ennis Rakestraw is another one. What is it? Nate Wiggins from Clemson. So there's a lot of depth. Terrion Arnold's probably going to be gone. I'd imagine he'll go earlier than your spot. You could trade up for him maybe. And then even Kool-Aid McKinstry. So there's several different options, I think, at 22. You either will have your pick if Howie's not sold on like one specific guy and he wants to trade up maybe to get a Quinion Mitchell. But that would be my preference is to go with Quinion. Free agency, as far as going with a corner, I don't know. Let's pull it up and look at all of them. I would say Sneed is probably my favorite. But there's going to be several different options too. So, yeah, here you go. Yeah, so I mean, there's some names out there. You know, you could go with a. I don't know if you're going to get like a. Well, it just depends on where you're going. I don't think you want to look at anything age wise. You know, so again, you got Stephon Gilmore, Micah Hyde, things like that. You want to get somewhat younger. I think. Not necessarily the worst thing if you want to get a guy who's close-ish to 30, but still, you know, the drop off eventually hits. So, I mean, Jalen Johnson would be phenomenal, but in my mind, he's honestly just kind of off the table. I've kind of stopped even thinking about him every time that we go through like potentials for free agency. But I know those are the two favorites probably, but it just doesn't feel like it's as likely for a, like I say, Jalen Johnson. But that's where I would go with Sneed. Now it's projected as $16 million is the payment. Again, that's in a perfect world. Do I think that is realistic? Probably not with what the Chiefs said. With Veach either going to be franchise tag, or if you don't get him, then he's going to what? He's going to basically trade or try to see if there's a long-term trade. So we'll see. But like Andrew says, there's a lot of big corners that could be grabbed in day two. Fitness Warrior, who would you rather have, Luvu or Al-Shaer? It's a good question. If money is no object, which it is, but if it wasn't, it'd probably say Frankie Luvu. But with it being an object, and the other holes that we have, I don't know. We could be talked into an Al-Shaer. You probably don't have to pay as much, but I think that he still would be a very good option. So I could see that. Brian says, listening to Howie sounds like we running back Bradbury at corner. If he does that, probably running back Maddox as well. I don't know. I disagree. I know what he said, and this is the whole part of like, I don't want to get into whole, speculation and, oh my gosh, like how he's going to get rid of him because I think that he is, or, make big headlines or anything like that on a video or something. But just, talking about it here, my opinion is, yes, he said Bradbury's in our plans for 2024, and then he walks off after his presser. I know he said some stuff before that, but he kind of got asked again, like, hey, what about Bradbury? He said he's part of our plans in 2024 and walks off. That means nothing. That means absolutely nothing. He's saying he's part of our plans. He's not going to tell you straight up, oh, we're going to cut him. We don't want him. He's going to probably see if he can somehow magically get a team that's willing to trade for him. But ultimately, he is very much in play. In my mind, he's very much in play to get cut. Post June 1, you're still going to have to pay for it. I know that it's not like it's a freebie or you save a ton of money or anything like that. You're going to have to pay for him even if you cut him post June 1st. But to me, it comes down to a couple different things as far as a roster spot. He does not need to be the one to play. And you go ahead and just be like, you know what, let's move on now. You pay for it a little bit up front and get it done with, move on. I just don't think that he's the guy. So I hear you. I agree with you in terms of like what he said. But remember, I mean, Howie is a mastermind, and Howie can be, a little bit of smoke and mirrors at times. So just because he said it didn't necessarily mean, or does not necessarily mean, that it is what's going to happen. Avonte Maddox, who knows? That one to me would be a little more likely for Maddox to return, but I don't think that if I had to bet on it, I don't think that Bradbury's going to come back. Also, like Anthony DeBona had pointed out, if the Eagles cut Bradbury post June 1st designation, they'll take a total dead cap hit of 17.2 over the next 2 seasons. And then, like he says, releasing Bradbury is an outlandish move to make. Howie has done or moved on from players with bigger dead caps before. So, yes, you're going to have to pay for it. It is significant. It is significant. But I don't think it's impossible. I think you could certainly see him doing that. Fan-controlled league. Thank you, Brian. I was trying to remember that. So, I'm curious to get that talk. There you go. Hey, shout out to Philly Boy. Just became a member. Let's run it. The Let's Run It tier. Heck yeah, I appreciate it, man. Welcome to the club. Frank from Philly. Hey, Josh, what's your thoughts on the Cam Newton situation? I mean, yeah, that was wild. Whole 7-on-7 and I mean, I don't get it. He's trying to do stuff for people and help them out and everything else, but I also at the same time don't know why you try to jump Cam Newton of all people. I mean, that dude's a beast, and it seems like he took it fairly well or was able to handle it fairly well. Is what, 1-on-7? Especially with the videos and the way that looked, but yeah, it's just a mess. I'm sorry, I just don't get the whole let's go jump this dude. But tempers flare, and sadly we see, feels like way too much of that. Maybe it's the fact that I'm on social media all the time, so it just naturally pops up all these stuff, but it just feels like we see it all the time. Fitness Warrior, I would love to see Kenny Moore and Isaiah Rodgers play side to side again. Yeah, that's true. That would be a really good sight to see. But Kenny Moore is a gamer. I do like Kenny Moore. He was rumored to be a possibility for Philly even around the trade deadline. Obviously, that didn't happen. But yeah, with his intensity, the passion that he plays with, I wouldn't hate that move. Matthew says, by plans, does he mean practice squad for Bradbury? But no, there's no way. Bradbury's either he's here and he's I mean, here's the thing. He is either playing or I don't know. I mean, maybe you pay him and he sits, but in my mind, it's like either you say, hey, Bradbury's going to be playing and we're going to pay him, or you cut him. I don't think there's an in-between. He's for sure not practice squad. There's no way that's happening. But that would be crazy. Don Capone. Is that a green screen or is that an actual Eagles room? It is an Eagles room. If you're asking about the logo here, the LED light. Got it off of a random site. Let's see. Here you go. I'll post it in the comments again. Yeah, like Hodge for 3 said that hat never came off, talking about Cam. That's true. It never moved. 7-on-1, hat never moved. But yeah, it's a Eagles room, Eagles studio, whatever you want to call it. Again, I mentioned it before, but probably going to give away, not this one, but another one just like it during draft night. So if you want to hang out during the draft, Thomas and I are going to have several giveaways and have a good time like always. We'll be live during the draft for plan on all 3 days. So assuming that, nothing crazy happens or schedules change, but should be there. Yeah, Fitness Warrior. The crazy part is Nick Sirianni said he put the best players in to win, but watched James Bradbury get cooked all season. So JB is our best second cornerback on our team. No way. Yeah, there's no way. Nick doesn't have quite the finesse that Howie does in press conferences. That's a no-brainer, obviously, for those of us that watch the press conferences, but especially when you see Howie go first and then Nick come afterwards, then it's like, okay, there's a drastic difference. One person knows exactly how to say things without saying things and still come across as truthful or sharing a decent amount of info without actually saying what they need to, versus the other one is Sirianni's word salad just about every single time. And either says too much in that it's like, okay, there's no way that he can think that, or he says way too little with a bunch of filler words. But yeah, I don't agree either. There's no way. I appreciate, hey, Sirianni hypes up all the players. He's a player's coach. I think that's why most players love him. But sometimes it's a little too much of like, okay, come on. You can't actually believe what you're saying. Zach is asking, though, is there a chance Bradbury could bounce back? Maybe Desai's scheme wasn't a great fit, and maybe it was too confusing. I mean, it's not impossible. I guess we shouldn't say that it's, he couldn't somehow get back to a decent level. But I feel like I'm with Pacino Alex, saying Bradbury never moved on from the Super Bowl mentally. He's still there in that Super Bowl, sort of like when Wentz got injured, never played the same again. The scheme for sure didn't help him, but yeah, there's something mentally that just, I don't know, just impacted him a ton, and I don't know if it was just more of like, I got to prove people wrong, or it's just the weight of like the hold, and he thinks to himself, which, I mean, yes, it kind of did, but it's like he thinks to himself, man, I cost everyone a Super Bowl. It was my fault. I shouldn't have done that, blah, blah, whatever. I don't think you should have called it, and objectively, I really do think that I can say this. If I was, sure, I would have been okay with it, but if the roles were reversed, just watching that game, or if I didn't have a dog in the fight, let's say, I would have said, don't throw the flag. I'm sorry. Don't decide the game like that. Again, maybe I'm biased in that specific instance. I'm just saying if I was on the other side. Frank said, that's a nice LED sign, but sheesh, way too rich for my value. It's expensive. Sorry, I should say that. It is expensive, which is why we're going to give one away during the draft. So, for people that are interested. And you don't want to spend the money on that because it was, it took a lot of convincing from, it was like, hey, talk to my wife, like, hey, it'd be cool to get this thing up there. Like, it's how much? Well, eventually we got it. Farmer J, what's your relation to Thomas? Did y'all meet online? You're in Dallas and he's in Atlanta. What's the real there? Yeah, I someone else asked earlier, but you may not have been on. So we went to Baylor together. Went to college, covered Baylor, worked for the student newspaper. He was in the broadcasting. I was the sports journalist, and orientation or whatever was tell us about yourself. He said he's an Eagles fan. I was like, sweet. And after that, it's like, all right, hey, we're going to hang out, watch some Eagles games together, stayed in touch. And, life moved on. He went to Atlanta. I stayed in Dallas, and there you go. Easy Droppin says, how much is the LED light? LOL, what's expensive? Let's see. It's been a little while since I've looked this bad boy up, but it is very, I mean, I don't know what you guys consider, but I'd say it's significantly expensive. Did somebody already answer that? No, they didn't answer it. Okay. It is, I don't know if the price went up or maybe I'm just misremembering what I paid for it, but it's showing here $470. Yeah. That's what it's showing. I would say that's expensive in my mind, but there you go. $470. Sydney Family says you look tall. Okay. I mean, I'm fairly tall. I'm 6'3". I'm the shortest of my brothers, but I'm 6'3". So I feel pretty tall around most people, except for my family. Zach says, I agree with you, Josh. Shouldn't have thrown the flag. Didn't throw a flag the whole game until it decided the biggest game. Let them play. Yeah. Especially where that ball ended up, too. It's like if it was a little closer, I think you could argue and say, well, it might have been catchable. To me, that was honestly one of those where you're like, it didn't even matter. Like a play was not going to be made there, but whatever. Sydney family, what goes on at Baylor stays at Baylor. Kubichi, what's up? I was glad I could catch some of the show. Just got home from the second job. Man, grinded. Appreciate you hanging out. Twisty says they can keep it. Oh, Sydney says context next to Thomas. I don't know. Were you looking at a picture? Like we went to the NFC Championship, so I don't know if that was the picture or if you were looking at the last video of Baylor footage. Maybe that's it. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know where that was coming from, so that makes more sense now. I don't think I paid $470 for that. It's showing up. The link that I have now is $470. I'd have to go back and look. Frank says, who do you think the Eagles might go after at linebacker in free agency? Patrick Queen is one that I would love, but I don't think that they will. Kind of similarly for Frankie Luvu. I really feel like it'll be Azeez Al-Shaair. That one feels not like it's not a stretch at all. With Bobby King as the new linebackers coach, he literally just coached Al-Shaair in Tennessee. Now, Rand Carthen may decide to keep him, may try to make a push and keep Azeez, but I think that's a realistic option. Andrew Van Ginkel, I've said for quite a while, that feels like the most likely of all linebackers. Now, he's not as much. He can play in the inside or as the off-ball linebacker, but I don't know. To me, it seems a little bit more likely to have him as that outside linebacker. And if Haason Reddick doesn't come back, then I think it's a lock. I think you can just go ahead and say, Andrew Van Ginkel, you are coming to Philly. We got you. If not, if Haason Reddick stays, I don't think it's impossible. It's just a little bit less likely. But to me, Andrew Van Ginkel, Azeez Al-Shaair, those feel like the most likely linebackers. Although there's Jordan Brooks. I think that's a possibility. Familiar with Clint Hurt. It's in Seattle. That could be a guy you could get for, cheaper. You don't have to pay premium dollar for some of the top linebackers. Josie Jewell from Denver. Maybe another one to look at. So there's a couple different names, but I do feel like it's in that more, whatever you want to call it, tier 2 linebacker. Don't pay premium money for it, but just that next step below. And you still get some quality talent. You add some depth, some veteran play, and players that are used to playing with Fangio, so they know the scheme and they can actually perform well. So that's what I would lean toward. Easy dropping. Nolan Smith having a breakout year this year. Since Haason may be out of here, I know you're a big fan of Nolan Smith. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Nolan Smith. I don't know. I'm a big fan, but y'all know that I've been kind of trying to be realistic and at the same time some concerns about potential injury or if he has a lingering issue with that shoulder or whatever it is. He's going to be much better. I will say that. Very confident he'll be much better. His athleticism, there's things that he needs to develop on for sure. He's got to get a different pass rushing move, but I think that with Fangio, like this defensive system is made for Nolan Smith. Fangio likes and prefers fast, athletic linebackers that can move all over the place. So just from the makeup of Nolan Smith and what you have athletes on the defense, and what he does, he needs to learn a lot and he needs to grow in the scheme, in the system. But Fangio can teach it. I'm confident that he can teach it, and I'm confident that Nolan Smith will have the want to stay late, stay longer in meetings. Be a professional, learn, grow. And if he can do that, I think that he's got the tools that he will eventually be successful. So, I think he'll have a better year. Breakout year. I mean, I don't know necessarily what you want to quantify it as that side, but considering what this season was, sure, I guess we could call it a breakout year. Like you say, especially if Haason Reddick isn't. If Haason leaves, it's more likely, but it's also almost a requirement that Nolan Smith has to play really well because you're going to ask a lot more from him. So I am confident in him. I will say that. Let's see. Got a super chat here. Young Truth, the 5. Appreciate it. How they really met. I'm Thomas, but you have to call me Dragon. Josh, you have to call me Nighthawk. That's pretty good. I like that. Little stepbrothers. Oh, yeah. Anytime we could throw in a little movie clips or humor or anything like that, that's... You got us. Yeah, that's exactly how it went. Anybody who's seen Step Brothers, that's all you need to know. Just about. Yeah, we had some good memories with covering the Baylor sports and going on some road trips. Also a little bit scary. Thomas won't mind me saying this, but we almost died whenever he tried to take over and drive. It was one of those, all-nighters things. And yeah, that was an experience. But we're very much the opposite whenever it comes to, like, I'm kind of a night owl, and he's more of a morning person. So going all the way through the night maybe wasn't as easy or whatnot, but still a good time. Jasper says, "Hey, what's going on, Josh? Hope I didn't miss anything. What's up? Appreciate you hanging out." Nope, didn't miss a whole lot. We're just kind of recapping limited news. There's not as much going on, obviously, this time of year. We're waiting on free agency. The combine starts Thursday, so there's not a whole lot of news. A little bit of rumors and speculation. L'Jarius Sneed, could he be? He is being recruited apparently by some Eagles players, but might not lead to much. Eagles are meeting with Jeremiah Trotter. Will be meeting with Tyler Guyton, right tackle from Oklahoma. And yeah, breaking down kind of the Howie and Nick press conferences and what they were saying there, but appreciate you hanging out. Banana Chicken, you think Kelce will retire? Unfortunately, I do. I really don't want him to, but I'm slightly more in the thought that he will retire and not come back. We'll see. Zach says, I hope we can still get Jeremy Chin. That'd be a good option. We talk about athletes, hybrid play ability there. Wouldn't mind that. Antonio, yeah, hey, that's a good point. Sneaky linebacker pickup. Isaiah Simmons from the Giants. Yeah, whenever he was looking to move on from Arizona, that was even a mention there. So if you should get any athletes, really, you just take a look across the board, but you get someone like that, I think it could be a really good fit. Appreciate it, Fitness. We'll see you for hanging out. Yeah, like Frank said, the press conferences today were not too revealing. And then, Antonio, how can we get Sneed when we paid Bradbury and Slay? Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible, but you're right. There's lots of money tied up and mistakes to be made, which is what Howie said. So, but I think I'm in my head. I'm writing off Sneed. Really, I mean, I want it to happen, but I'm not thinking that it is going to happen. Haason, I do think is going to come back. I think we'll get something figured out, whether it's meet in the middle ground or you do pay him what he wants if he holds firm. I think that Haason will come back. DeAndre Swift, probably gone, unfortunately. Yeah, there's several moves. You free up some cap space. It's very easy to get to $60 million, and that's after you extend Haason Reddick. You give Haason a deal, you get to $60 million in cap space. Not just from that, but that cut Byard, Smitty extension, Landon Dickerson extension. I think you're right there at 30. Or I'm sorry, right there at 60. So not a bad place to be in. You do all that. You have money to work with in free agency, and then you go get a couple guys. Just don't know if it'll be a big splash, with those upper echelon guys at any position. All right, I'm going to cut it off here in just a second. So a couple more questions, and then I got to go run help the MVP, a.k.a. my wife. Let's see. Easy dropping. Question here. How do you think Jalen Hurts plays this season? Do you think they go with go back to him or having him use his legs? I don't know. I mean, with as much as they paid him, I know it was some of the injury, but the offense with Kellen Moore and everything there too, I don't know. It might be a little bit, and if they do, I think it'll be just predicated on the injury and what he suffered. So yeah, I can't see it being drastically different. Honestly, I feel like it'll be more so just take advantage of or try to get him to take that next step with progressions, putting him in the right position, also the receivers in the right positions to help him make quicker decisions with the ball. It's got to be faster because he was, second to last in terms of time to throw. So you got to make life easier on everyone, including the O-line, get rid of the ball faster. But yeah, running-wise, I don't think so. But the beauty is it won't be, to me, it won't be as impactful because you're going to have him under center. You're going to have play action. You're going to have rollouts. So maybe he does take off and run occasionally. But it's like him not running as much this season was terrible, and we all saw that. But it was even worse because we were in the gun 90% of the time. So if he has no threat to pull it and run, then you're just going to get hurt from that. So, no pun intended with Jalen Hurts. But Antonio, Philly Mike reported today that the Eagles looking to re-sign Agent Zero. Are they really? I didn't see any reports of official on. I mean, I know that they said, "Hey, we love DeAndre Swift," and DeAndre had mentioned he would love Philly. I've seen that. He wants to return. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's all speculation for right now. And again, I'm not saying that's incorrect of looking to. I'm sure they're looking to. I'm sure they're looking to potentially sign a lot of different people. But I just didn't see any like official report that they've either made him an offer or that there's, I don't know, maybe not as like close as Haason Reddick. But yeah, I don't think it's for a lack of trying. I think they'll definitely try to get something done. I'm just saying from what DeAndre Swift will probably command. I mean, if we look at what Miles Sanders got and then the fact that the salary gap increased, just seems likely that a team is going to be willing to spend more money and take him from you. But who knows? Like Nate says, why does everyone say Swift is gone? How much does he demand on the market? Is he more expensive than other names linked to Philly? No, he's not more expensive. I mean, depending on who we're talking about, but he's not more expensive than a Saquon Barkley or a Derrick Henry. But I also don't know that that's realistic. It would be cool. It'd be fun. I'm just going based on, honestly, my take is I'm just going based off of what Howie Roseman has done. And he does not pay running backs an extension. He doesn't bring running backs back very often or ever, basically. You could look at LaShawn McCoy for an extension. And sure, it depends on the level of running back or how well they've done. You could also make that case of, well, there wasn't very many that were deserving of it. But I don't know. The writing on the wall is he just doesn't like to pay that. And the Eagles very rarely do. You take a look at the stats. I mean, the Eagles are, over the course of the last, I think it's the last 6 years, 6 or 7 years, the Eagles are second least amount of money paid to running backs. So and we know that. It's a Howie philosophy. The Commanders are literally the only team that has less money spent on running backs. So that's all I'm going with. Just past history. Maybe he changed. Maybe he adjusts his mindset. But if Howie thinks, he likes to try to stay ahead of the game. He likes to, look at other options. And he's even said, hey, there's certain areas where we can invest and there's other areas where we can't. So, it seems likely that he were to say to himself, oh, well, I can basically find another DeAndre Swift. No one thought that I could do that during the draft last year, but I did. And we found a DeAndre Swift. When Miles Sanders left and we didn't draft Bijan Robinson and, we didn't get a Jahmyr Gibbs, we didn't get another bigger name running back or someone that could be a possibility. No one thought DeAndre Swift was coming here, but I pulled that off. We made that work. So I'm going to get who I need. It'll be maybe in free agency. It'll be maybe in the draft. It'll be maybe after that in a trade. But I just think that Howie's made it work enough times to where it just wouldn't shock me if he were to say it's not going to happen. Now, if Swift is willing to take a little bit of a team-friendly deal, a pay cut, then sure. It's just seeing what Swift did, knowing what some teams value the running back versus the Eagles, that's where I'm thinking it'll come down to. And I can't blame Swift at all. If, hey, you got one team that's going to offer you $7-8 million, and Philly's saying, yeah, we got 5, maybe 6. Who knows? I could be dead wrong. But that's where I think that it's coming from. Let's see. Missed the super chat here. Let me get to this real quick. But Obi-Wan Kenobi, appreciate the 10. I didn't see a message here, but if you got something else, I'll throw that up here real quick. But appreciate that. Appreciate the 10 bomb. And also Jasper, another 10. Heck yeah, bro. Says, sucks that I missed the Friday night hangout last time, but glad to be here today. Anyways, Josh, keep on with the bangers, man. I appreciate that. We for sure will. There'll be a temporary break. Probably have one more video before I head out. Just again, as a reminder, I'll be gone till like Monday or Tuesday next week. So no Friday night hangout, unfortunately, this week. But we will have it for next week. I'll be there Tuesday and Friday. So we'll be sure to hang out and everything else. But heck yeah, appreciate that. And then Obi-Wan. I was saying keep up the good work. I appreciate it. Yeah, seeing everybody. Again, I would love for DeAndre Swift to stay here. I just don't think that he will. Antonio, what do you think of Junior Colson, linebacker from Michigan? He's a stud. Check him out. Absolutely. I've checked out Junior Colson. I think he's a stud. I think he's a great fit for Philly. Talked about it a little bit in my last video. I mean, especially like he's already a great fit for Philly, but you look at Nakobe Dean, and I think it makes it even better because if we're going to be with Nakobe Dean, you get this dude out there, and he is a lot bigger of a linebacker. What, 6'3", like 245, 247? I can't wait to see what he runs at the combine. Like, if he can do, I don't know what number necessarily, but if he can put up a pretty impressive number, it's just going to even skyrocket further in terms of his draft stock. But the fact that he is a good coverage linebacker, and I've seen like multiple scouting reports are saying this dude could come in day one with especially with his coverage skills and make a solid impact. So I'm really high on Junior Colson. Honestly, I think I'm higher than probably the vast majority of at least like mock drafts where I've seen him go. I don't know necessarily that he's going to last quite as long. I think that he could be a second round selection for the linebacker spot. So yeah, I love the idea of the potential there, especially with the coverage. Like I said, I do want a bigger, faster, athletic linebacker. So echo the same statement. Yeah, if you haven't checked him out, go look him up, everybody. I would be very happy if he ends up coming to Philly. Sydney Family says, why not keep and draft Braylon Allen? 6'3", 242, third round, cheaper than Henry. That's true. We could, and that's where I think, again, it's maybe not fair necessarily to say, oh, hey, rookies at the level of a all-pro Derrick Henry type of deal. But, Derrick Henry is progressing downward, or he's having a little bit, even if it's not yet, eventually he's going to reach the moment where he starts to have a drop-off or a significant drop-off. So I think that's where Howie's at too, is, hey, you go get somebody in the draft, you supplement that way. Wouldn't be surprising. So. All right. I got to get off. Got to go help the wife. It's bedtime for those. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Been a blast. If you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe. We'll have more content in the coming days. Well, I should say in the coming day. And then I'm going to be off. Won't make the Friday night hangout, but we'll be back next week. So appreciate it as always. You guys have a fantastic night. And until then, go Birds.